So recently I tactically acquired an old desktop from 2007. It is an Acer Aspire, and inside it has an AMD Athlon 64X2 4200 plus CPU. It originally came stock with 1 GB of DDR2 RAM, a 250 GB hard drive, and a DVD-RW drive. Now, if you notice, one thing it doesn't mention having is a graphics card, and inside is an unpopulated PCI Express slot. And when you know it, I just happen to have one of these laying around, and it still works. Well, this one doesn't, but I have another one that does still work. This is an NVIDIA 8800 GT graphics card made by BFG Tech, rest in peace. And I thought it would just be kind of fun to take a look at what kind of performance you could have expected if you were running games from a little bit before, during, and after this PC's time. And of course, ultimately answer the question everyone in 2007 was asking, can it run Crysis? But first, some editor's notes. The games I've chosen are mostly first and third person shooters and racing games. Sorry, I'm not much of an RTS guy. Second, I will try to go in chronological order as much as possible, but I might jump around. And third, this is far from being a scientific analysis, no charts, just MSI Afterburners on-screen display. I've also upgraded the 1 GB to 4 and replaced the hard drive with an SD card, equipped not with Windows Vista like this thing originally came with, but Windows XP 32-bit. Now, all that aside, let's get into it. So first up is Doom 3, which did come out 3 years before this PC's release, but I thought it would be interesting to see how far things had come in those 3 years and how much performance you could get out of this game, considering. I should also note, I'm only going to be playing a few minutes of these games each, not very far into each one, just for time's sake, but I will do what I feel is representative of performance, and then call it quits. Okay. Alright, so here's Doom 3 at 1024x768 with the high preset, and it is stuck at 60 FPS. That is pretty amazing considering the game's just 3 years old at this point. And I have a PC with a Pentium 4 inside, 2.6 gigahertz Pentium 4, single core, and it struggles like crazy to run this game. And that is a machine much more closely aligned with the minimum requirements rather, for this game. And if you were playing Doom 3 in 2007 with this machine, you were getting a locked 60 FPS, basically. At least in the intro, and that's very impressive, to me anyway. You can see it's using almost 300 megabytes of VRAM. This graphics card has a whopping 512 megabytes of VRAM. So we're good there.
Oh yeah, keep in mind, civilians are working down here. Don't get excited and shoot at me.
Like that?
Hey!
Hey!
Listen, Scotty. I've done this a million times. It's not that hard.
Why don't you fly your fat ass down here and do it yourself?
Jeez! Do you make a habit of sneaking up on people?
Hey, you're that new guy headed for the old comm center, right?
Correct. Still locked at 60, man. That's pretty crazy. Pretty impressive performance so far.
Huh? No. No.
Alright, so things are about to pop off. I wonder if the frame rate's going to take any sort of hit with these visual effects coming on. Not yet. Interesting, even with like 5 enemies on screen or whatever that was. Still locked. Oh, good time to reload. Wonderful. Alright, well that runs exceptionally well, so that's a nice surprise. So I guess we'll move on to the next game, which is from 2005. This is 2004, 2005. Need for Speed Most Wanted. All right, so if we go to Advanced, you see here. So if you go to full screen anti-aliasing and turn that down, that usually helps a bit. I get a little bit of performance back. We're up over 60 throughout the city scenes now, at least. So at the expense of more aliasing, but I would have taken it back then, honestly. But yeah, I mean, the performance so far in both of these games I've looked at is quite surprising, to be honest with you. I mean, this would have been phenomenal back in the... I would have been so happy with this, I can't tell you. Alright, I'm just going to get past these intro races and then I'll move on to something else from 2005. It's dipping below 50 FPS anytime I get into like a city heavy setting, like now. But still, it's above 50, like it's 50 to 60. So, I mean, if VRR was a thing then, this would be an ideal candidate. But so far, man, I've been very impressed with the performance on both of these games. Again, granted, the settings aren't quite as high as the Xbox 360 version, but it definitely looks better than the previous gen consoles. Alright, I'm going to move on to another game from 2005. This one clearly runs perfectly well, so I'm going to go ahead and move on to something that... I don't know if it's more intensive than this one, but definitely something that was intensive at the time and used as a benchmark tool for a couple of years at least. Of course, I'm talking about F.E.A.R. So this is one of the rare games at the time that actually had a built-in performance benchmark, so you could actually just see what your machine's capable of right out of the gate. So I'm gonna just knock everything to the max settings, which they're kind enough to have a setting called maximum. Now, when I auto-detect, so let me do this real quick. When I auto-detect, it tells me computer, CPU, set to medium. And then it gives me a custom graphics card. And you can see through the individual settings here, physics is at medium, sound is at medium for whatever reason. Particle bouncing, shell casing, basically physics, and corpses littering the landscape are what gets knocked down to medium. And then if you go to the graphics card side of things, everything except a couple of settings is at maximum, and it sets it automatically to 1024 by 768, which is what we're testing everything at anyway. So I'm gonna go ahead and knock everything up to maximum though, and we'll just see what max settings we get in the benchmark tool right here. You see it's stuttering a little bit. It's at what, 40-50 frames a second. Mostly when there's a lot of sparks flying around and physics interactions going on with like the explosions there with the chips falling from the ceiling and the wall. And you can see when there's nothing going on, we're up in the hundreds. You can see vast majority above 40 FPS, maximum 193, and the average was 79. Now I'm going to do the auto detect and we'll go through again and see what happens. Remember, everything on the CPU side is basically at medium and the graphics card is everything maximum bar a couple settings. Okay, so it looks about the same results-wise, but definitely not near the amount of stuttering as there was with CPU settings all the way up to max. So I'm going to actually just roll with the recommended settings, and we'll play through the first bit here and just see what kind of experience you had. Alright, here we go. Once you get into the gunfights here with all the physics going on. Still like 60 plus, so pretty good. Kind of shimmy. That was funny. Okay, here's the end of the first level. Let's go ahead and finish this up, and then I'll try the next game. Alright, well, F.E.A.R runs exceptionally well, which is not really surprising. Next, let's move closer to this PC's release date, 2007, which featured a couple of really big PC first-person shooters. First up, Call of Duty 4, Modern Warfare. Okay, so settings on here, again, pretty similar to everything else we're running. I have everything turned on, either at normal or medium, and basically every option on, from shadows to depth of field to ragdoll effects, bullet impacts, And this is also running with 4x MSAA, so I could potentially turn that off and get some frames back. Let's see.
Hold your fire. Guys, stay in the bird till we secure the
Boy, this is really, really weird. It's so inconsistent. It goes from like 70s till now it's in the 40s. Now we're over 100 FPS. Now we're back to 40. Good grief.
Forward area clear. Move! Stack up. Stand by. On my go. One ready. Two ready.
Get on your feet. Get out of there. Jump. Grab me now. Well, again, it ran pretty well for the most part. You can see here even it's dipping into the 40s, which is interesting. So you got like a dynamic range of performance there from like the 40s all the way to like 150 plus it looked like. So okay, that's an interesting one. I'm gonna move on. Not sure what I'm gonna play next. Okay, so I jumped ahead a little bit to 2010. This is the original release of Metro 2033, which I believe is actually more demanding than the remastered version that came out a few years later. Anyway, this was especially demanding at the time. Although I can only run DirectX 9 mode. You can see I'm on the normal preset. I'm just going to stick with normal. It runs pretty dang playably, so... go ahead and
Shit is always breaking down.
get going here.
Use the auxiliary hand. Before we hit the surface, put your gas mask on. Without it, it'd be like a fish outside his wall.
We're almost there. This is the Korolev Performance Hall. It's really close to the tower.
So we're right at the VRAM limit here. It's at 511 megabytes on a 512 megabyte card.
Here they come.
So any skipping, I would expect it to be because it's going over the VRAM limit, most likely. And we're right at that limit there. Now remember, this version of the game was not well optimized at all compared to the remasters, so frame rates are likely to dip pretty regularly. So ironically, even though this is the very beginning of the game, this is one of the more demanding parts in the entire game from what I remember anyway. Mostly because there's so many enemies on screen, which doesn't happen very often throughout the game. Yeah, you can see how demanding this sequence is. Down to the 20s. 16, 18 FPS. Jeez. I think that's pretty representative, though, of this game's performance. That's probably the most intensive sequence almost throughout the whole game because of how many enemies come through at once. That doesn't really happen throughout the rest of the game. It's very, like, you know, claustrophobic and atmospheric, and it's like one enemy at a time, maybe two or three. But I'm going to move on to something else next. I'm going to move on to a game from 2010, I think later in the year. Need for Speed Hot Pursuit, the Criterion Edition. Settings, I'm going to do 10x7 like usual. I'm going to keep power resolution high. I can't even talk. Go to settings. I'm going to do high resolution textures off. Motion blur. I could do shadow level at high. Why not? 20s, low mid 20s. This is like the most intensive game I've played yet. Outside of that one part of Metro 2033. Isn't that weird? It seems like it's having trouble with streaming and new information, just like some of the other games we play. The problem is this is a racing game and it's doing that like all the time. Now this is obviously still playable if you would want to go through the game and this is all you had. Maybe you could go put up with it, but the thing is, let's try lowering the resolution even. Let's try 800 by 600. So it's over 30 FPS. Well, it was. Me and my big mouth. The funny thing about racing games is the better you do, the better your performance will be because you're the only car on screen. So if you're like in the back of the pack and you have 10 cars on screen, your frame rate's going to be terrible. But if you're doing well and you're winning, you're the only car on screen, aside from the traffic, obviously, and your performance will be a lot better. So that gives you kind of extra incentive to win in these cases. Okay, so yeah, it's relatively playable at 800 by 600, and medium shadows, low shadows will probably perform a little better, but this is probably the most performance-intensive game I've tried yet, and that's impressive considering its lineup that's included things like Metro 2033 so far. So, yeah, alright, moving on. Alright, here we are. The moment of truth, the question we all want answered. Well, we have it answered right here. It can at least start Crysis and get into the menu. Graphics 1024 by 768. Everything on medium. So, probably what you would expect is to have it on medium. But let's try high, just for fun. I kind of want to leave objects quality at medium, but I'm going to try pushing the envelope. Alright, so we're like low to mid 20s when I'm up in an open area like this. On high. Jeez, dude doesn't want to die. Good lord. Won't die. I'm gonna try knocking settings down to medium. Let's try optimal settings and see what it tells me. Change to medium spec. Okay, that's what I figured. That's all it did. It just changed everything to medium. I'm actually gonna change textures to high. Shadows can stay there. Let's say. Let's do a mix of like water at high, sound at high, motion blur high. Post-processing, we'll do high. Let's see how that works. Well, we're in like the 20s and 30s. That's probably where we can expect to stay.
That must be the jamming station.
Well, okay then. Oh. It crashed. Let's just do medium. At all settings to medium. Yes. Okay, wow. It's like mid upper 20s. Before it was like about the same. It's not the most optimized game, so. Oh, hello. Got 2 turrets after me now. That's a bit overkill. Well, that tanked the frame rate. Oh. Saw that one coming. For the most part, it seems like it's like in the 20s. I mean, back in the day, I could have played through it, but I wouldn't consider it really playable. But nonetheless, it is impressive it runs it as well as it does, considering this computer is basically launching at the same time as the game, and so is this GPU. So this is like a very contemporary PC for the time, and this is kind of the performance you could expect if you had like somewhat of a budget level graphics card. Physics. Ahoy! Yeah, that's what I thought. So it's playable to an extent, and then once you get down to the areas with tons of physics going on, I would say not really playable at all. Okay, well, there you have it. Can it run Crysis? Yeah. Would I want to play Crysis on this machine? No, probably not. But back in the day, you didn't have much choice. And this machine came out almost at the same time that Crysis hit the market. So if you had this machine and you ponied up just a few extra bucks for an 8800 GT, clearly Crysis was at least somewhat playable and you could get through it, especially if you wanted to drop to low settings. But gotta say, I'm pretty impressed, and I had a good time just going through old catalog like this and just playing through the beginning parts of old games. I do have other machines, and I could do similar videos on those. I have an old Pentium 4, I have Pentium 3, Pentium 2, I have an old 486. Yeah, so if you liked the video, please leave a like, dislike if you didn't. Consider subscribing and hitting the notification bell. Let me know below in the comments, what kind of machine did you have when Crysis dropped? What was the machine that you played Crysis on first? Was it similar to this Athlon 64 or something completely different? Did you have an 8800 GT or maybe one of the 8800 Ultras that hit the market? This one's big brother. Yeah, I think I'm going to leave it here, guys. Thanks for watching, and till next time.